Yo guys, what's up? It's your boy Jesse coming to you today with a more serious video. I like to talk about mental health a lot, and this one I'll get the title of Wisdom Wednesday or something. It's good for Wednesday, and it's something that I'm very passionate over, something that I think is very important, and that is mental health. But I'd like to talk a little bit about my own mental health journey and tell you guys how things have changed over my own life. Before I do, guys, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It is the best way to help me to continue to make these videos for everyone, and it helps YouTube see that my videos are good enough to be pushed out. And let's push for 1,000 subscribers, guys. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about my mental health journey. When I looking back at how things used to be, I used to be in a really bad situation when it came to mental health. I've told you guys before, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. I was diagnosed with insomnia. I had depression, anxiety, and according to another doctor, I had adjustment disorder and different things like that. And I used to do a lot of stupid stuff to myself and to others. What you see now is a lot different than what I used to be, especially during my time in the military. I tended to be pretty manipulative. I tended to try to find ways to talk to people that would make myself look really good. Just to give you all a little idea of how I used to think. For any of my Star Wars fans, I would have been very close to how Emperor Palpatine was when he was still in the Senate, before he revealed that he was a Sith. I would have been very close to how he was, in that I knew how to hide any kind of bad intentions that I had. I knew how to get into people's heads. I'm still very good at that. Or if any of you guys like Game of Thrones, my favorite character in Game of Thrones, and the way I would have played the game, was Peter Baelish, Littlefinger. I thought he was a genius. You play the game by manipulating your way to the top. And that's pretty much what he did. He knew how to talk. He knew how to pull on people's heartstrings and how to get into their head. And that's kind of how I used to be. I used to be like that. And I'm still like that to an extent. But I don't use it for bad reasons. I use it more just to mess with people now. I remember once when I was a teenager, I got in all kinds of trouble. I done a lot of bad things as a teenager. I scared a lot of people with the way I acted and the things I said and the things I done, especially in high school. And I was sent to a behavioral health hospital for 2 weeks. And then I was sent to a detention center for another 2 weeks for some of the things that I did. And I remember getting out and going in front of a judge so I wouldn't have to go back to the detention center. And I don't even remember what I said, but I remember his response to me. And his response was that he said, "Mr. Mosley, you are a very intelligent young man." I hate to say it like this, but in my mind I was like, yes, I got him. I knew I know what I'm doing. Even the witnesses that the prosecutor called, like the school officer, the prosecutor was hitting the school officer hard. The police officer in the school, he was hitting that guy hard with questions, trying to make me look like a bad person. And one of the questions he asked the school officer was, "Would you trust this boy alone with your daughter?" His daughter was the same age as me. And the officer said, "Yeah, I would." And then the prosecutor said, "Well, why did you arrest him?" And the officer said, "Because that's my job. I had to do it. I was ordered to do it, and so I had to." You know, I knew how to talk to people. I was very good at that. I'm still very good at that. And it got me out of a lot of trouble, for better or worse. It got me out of a lot of trouble. And the more it happened, the better I got at it, the better I was able to talk to people. And I learned how to use body language. I learned how to use the tone of my voice. I learned how to talk around certain people. I tend to be very good at mimicking mannerisms of other people in different situations. It's not as easy now, or it wasn't when I first got here, because I was in a completely different place. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, this isn't bad though. This is me still using that ability, which is an antisocial and a narcissistic type of ability, to be able to mimic the mannerisms of other people. But I was able to use that in a good way when I came to the Philippines. When I first got here, even to today, it's been 2 years since the first time I came here, but even to today, a lot of Filipinos tell me all the time, you were born in the wrong country. You're a Filipino and you just didn't know it. You've been living in America. You're a white Filipino. Because I can fit in good when I'm put into a situation. I can fit in good with other people. And I've learned that Filipinos are very happy, very loud, and energetic. The thing about that is, though, that's not even hard for me. That mimicking that personality, I don't even really mimic that personality. That is just me. I really am energetic and happy, and I talk a lot. A lot of it comes from anxiety, but at the same time, I love that anxiety that makes me want to be more sociable. I like that. And so looking at how I am today, some of those personality traits that could be seen as deviant can also be seen as a huge benefit for me and for anyone who has these kind of issues, because you can do like what I've done and use it for the good and learn how to talk to certain people in a certain way that will help you and help them grow in your relationship or your status or whatever. As far as those 3 traits, which I can't remember, it's like personality disorder trait type A or type B or something like that. There's different ones. All 3 of the ones I have, which is BPD and antisocial personality APD, all 3 fall into one category. I just can't remember what it was called. As far as the borderline goes, though, that one has been the one that I think has been the hardest for me because of the extreme emotions. I can tell you right now what it is to be borderline. I can tell you all the things that I go through, like this fear of abandonment. I don't like to be alone. Breakups drive me crazy. I go crazy, but at the same time I push people away. I start fights just because I don't even know why, actually, and I can't remember what the psychological terms were for it. I like to start fights, or not even really like to sometimes. Sometimes I just feel like it. It's the hardest for me to deal with because it brings on a lot of the depression, especially when it comes to fighting, and it brings on a lot of the anxiety. Again, because of the fighting, because then I start to think, oh no, I'm going to be alone. People are going to leave me, that kind of stuff, which is very typical of someone who has BPD. The way I deal with it now, I can't say anything that I think would help many people. You just got to get it so stuck into your head, and it's still going to be a problem, BPD is, but I just work. I do college homework, or I do video edits. I force myself to do something, and it's hard. It is not easy because everything in you is fighting it because of how you feel. Everything in you is saying, no, stop. Do not feel like doing this. And you have to fight that feeling. You have to overcome it. It's not easy, but it's doable. And listening to people like Andrew Tate helped me a lot, actually. That was one of the biggest things that helped me. And then going to the mental health hospital when I was in the Army, when I went for the 28 days, that helped a lot because my therapist and my psychiatrist, they taught me a lot on better ways to think. That doesn't mean it's not hard, and it doesn't mean that sometimes I'm able to use what they taught me, but sometimes I am, and I just have to wait it out, some of the feelings. And so I'll wait it out while I work. I do anything to get my mind off of the problem. Again, it's not easy. I can sit and do homework. I can type up papers while thinking about a problem. Let's say my fiance and me fight. I can sit and type up a paper while thinking about that problem and still get an A on the paper. It's a hard thing to deal with, and that of all of my mental health issues, that's the one that I have the most problems with, because that brings on the biggest amount of depression. The anxiety brought on by the borderline is tough, but other than that, I still do this, but I was a lot worse before. I would be very loud, and I would try to scare people, that way they'd be intimidated instead of me being the only one intimidated and having all these things, all these anxious feelings. But now I'm still very loud, but I've used that energy to just be more friendly. I don't know how else to put that. It's a strange way that I do things, but I've been able to take a lot of these feelings, and instead of making them negative, I've been able to turn them around to a positive. That doesn't mean that sometimes they're not negative, because they are. They're really hard to deal with, but you can learn how to, at least at times, take those feelings and use them for good. Insomnia. I remember when I was a teenager with insomnia, I used to, every Friday night, I'd just stay up, wouldn't sleep until Saturday night. Now, and I'd write poetry. In the military, insomnia came in very handy during basic training. The drill sergeants would always think that they would wake us up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that everybody would be asleep. I never was. I was usually awake anywhere between 4 and 5 o'clock. And I still do that. I'm still waking up between 4 and 5 o'clock. Now I try to go to sleep around 9 or 10. I lay down. It doesn't mean I'll fall asleep, but I do lay down. But the insomnia has helped me immensely when it comes to my schoolwork and stuff right now. Because with everything else that I'm trying to do, it gives me those few extra hours to be able to push a little something more out. Adjustment disorder. I don't know what to say about that, honestly. I think I was diagnosed with that because that was the time that I just, one of the relationships I was in that just ended. And then I also talked to the psychiatrist about, or she was a nurse practitioner, I think. I don't even think she was a psychiatrist. But I talked to her about the time that we were being rapidly deployed somewhere, and how I started having those same kinds of depressing feelings. And she came up with the idea that maybe I have adjustment disorder because I have a hard time adjusting to new situations. But when I do adjust to those situations, I'm good. The only problem I have with that is that if that was such a big issue, then when I came to the Philippines by myself twice, and then I went to, I've been to Germany and Japan and China and places like that, I would feel like there would be a lot more depression involved because I'm adjusting to something completely new, but that never happened. So I don't know how true that diagnosis was. And that happened before I went the second time to the hospital, and before they diagnosed me with borderline and all the other stuff they had diagnosed me with. I don't take medicine anymore. I used to. Medicine is not very good for personality disorders. And like I told you guys, the biggest mental health disorder I deal with is the borderline personality disorder. And based off research that we have, medicine, it might can treat, maybe if you have the depression and stuff, it might can treat that, but it can't really treat the personality disorder. That's more of a therapy kind of thing. You got to shift the way you think, which is what I just do on my own now, because it's kind of hard to find therapists here in the Philippines, at least where I'm at. But yeah, that's how I've changed over the years with mental health. Mental health has been all over the place since I was a teenager. In the Army, things just went completely crazy. A lot of stuff happened. A whole lot of stuff happened while I was in the Army. It made everything worse. Actually, it added on new stuff. It made everything worse. It wasn't even that. It just, a bunch of shit just happened. Maybe it's because I was already psychologically vulnerable or something. I don't know. There you go, guys. That's really it. My journey, I can't say that it's, this big grand journey. But it's a journey that maybe I can share with you guys, people who are going through the same problems. Maybe it can give you a little bit of hope, because I know that sometimes it feels very hopeless when you have mental health disorders. It feels like no one's there for you, no one understands you. And you know what? That's probably true. I mean, people probably don't understand it. People probably can't think the way you're thinking. Your thinking is very different than how they think, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they don't care about you. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you think differently. It just means your brain's wired differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. You get help if you can, or at least try to find ways where you can help yourself. That's my advice to you guys. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. I'm sure there are people who probably have a lot to say about this issue, especially considering that all I told you all that I have as far as mental health goes, and the fact that I'm not taking medicine anymore. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, complaints, whatever, leave them in the comment section. I really do, as you all see on my videos, I respond to every comment. And other than that, guys, know that y'all are valuable and that you matter. God bless. Peace.